I'm first covering Friday's newspaper, the Indian Express. Now, the first, if we start with the first news, if you see Vivek Debroy, who is the head of the Prime Minister Advisory Council. Now, he's recently written an article that New India basically requires a new constitution, and he has been criticized left, right, and center because of. Now, if you've been following Twitter, he's also being criticized very vociferously on Twitter because of his this thing. However, he has defended himself and saying that whatever he said is also in his personal capacity. But at the same point of time, we have to also understand that when people of his stature comment on something, or write on something, they also have a fiduciary responsibility. They are not just speaking for themselves. They are not just representing themselves. They are also representing an institution. So therefore, because of the closeness that he has with the powers, so to be. Therefore, his thinking and his articulation also does have an impact on the governance. So this is something which is controversial, that has been kicked up, something which can be asked in future, that does India need a new constitution reflecting the new times. And basically he says that right now one of the fulcrums of his article that he wrote for the Mint was that right now there is this basic structure of the constitution, which was a judicial way that was devised in 1976 or by the Keshwan and Bharati case, and which says that the constitution, there are certain elements of the constitution cannot be changed. But what he argues is, if we change the entire constitution, if we bring the entire new constitution, then that will not be in violation of the basic structure. So again, somehow we are seeing this this issue between this debate between and this confrontation between the judiciary and the executive, as has been reflected in a number of other issues. For example, the new bill with respect to the central election commission, or the central election officer, the chief election officer, is now it's being recommended that the role of the Chief Justice of India will not be there. So we see that there is a confrontation that is going on between the judiciary as well as the executive. So this is an important article for you to cover. The second article, which has implications on our internal security as well, is that of the drug menace that we are seeing in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Srinagar. So this entire article, and even on Saturday, this article was covered, which talked about that drugs has become a major source of menace, and more than that of militancy. Now I want to take you back to this entire problem. This is not the first time that drugs have been used as a matter of security threat. This has been used in previous wars as well. So there's something called as opium wars in history. You can read about those. But at the same point of time, very recently in history, the American war in Vietnam, one of the reasons for the Americans to lose that war was the addiction that American troops had to heroin in that particular era. In fact, there's a wonderful movie that you can probably watch with respect to this. The movie is called The American Gangster. So that movie is based on that particular era as well. So what we are seeing here in Jammu and Kashmir is that the number of addicts have been increasing, and these have been pushed extensively by the non-state actors and the state actors from Pakistan. So and this is part of, if you I want you to search about what is called as the Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle. So India is kind of sandwiched between the entire Indian subcontinent, or the entire country is sandwiched between two major drug producing regions. One is that of the one is to our north and towards Pakistan, north and northwest, which is Pakistan, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. These are all the countries which are part of the Golden Crescent, which are again a major hub of opium production. And the other is on our eastern border, Myanmar, you have Thailand, Cambodia. This is called as the Golden Triangle. So we are kind of sandwiched between these two major hubs of opium and opium trade, and that's why both in if you see the Manipur issue, one of the reasons of the Manipur issue, or one of the contributing factors, is that the poppy cultivation that is happening by outsiders, and the kind of drugs that they are bringing in, the outsiders are bringing into Manipur. So that is one problem that we are facing here in Jammu and Kashmir. Now we see a huge influx of drugs, which is basically creating a social havoc in the society. At the same point of time, when you're giving solution, I would urge you to take up those solutions that we had seen in Punjab. Nasha Roku committees in every village, and they're monitoring each and every person who's new into the village, and then and then seeing whether that person is a drug supplier or not. The moment you cut down the supply of drugs in a particular village, the people who are addicted to drugs will automatically go to the drug control centers and then the de-addiction centers. So you need an intervention at the village and the societal level. I mean, the country, as the army and the other defense establishment can do their own work, but as a societal problem, this needs to be tackled at the household level as well as the village level. So this is another news that I want you to read. Then the third important article is the lander departs successfully, 5 days to moon touchdown. Now there is this competition that is going between Luna of Russia and Chandrayaan. Although the Luna mission will, because of the bigger rockets and the lighter payload, their moving time has been much more lower, or their transportation time has been much more lower. We have had a lesser powerful rocket and a much more higher payload, because of which the time that we are taking is much higher. And now we are going for a final maneuver. We've already talked about this maneuvering. We have already talked about L1, L2 Lagrange points as well when we talked about Aditya satellite. And now we are going to descend ourselves to the moon orbit, and slowly descend to a lower orbit, and then the rover will basically, the lander will land on moon, and the rover will do its experiments on the southern border, or the southern the end of moon. Then, so this is another article that I want you to read. Now, with respect to UCC, you can maybe read about UCC. Because Goa is one of the states where UCC is being applicable for the last 150 odd years, and what it looks like. So if you see the last part of the column, one model is held up, that is the example of the Portuguese Civil Code, 156-year-old code that was enacted in Lisbon, and it's applicable to Daman, Diu and Dadra Nagar Haveli as well as Goa. So both these, something for prelims, you can take it up, that where is it applicable to. Then apart from that, if you see the second page, let's see this news in entirety. If you see the second page, yeah. So in case of Goa, this particular, and in case of Portuguese, this particular code was taken up from the medieval ages, from what is called as the communion of assets, where you have joint ownership of marital property, which is followed in Portugal since Middle Ages. The law gives spouses an equal right in each other's assets. That means neither party can sell the asset without other one's consent. Whereas in Hindu law, in Hindu law, first of all, before 2007, there was no right of daughters to have in the father's estate. But now, but now the wife is a legal heir. She's not the joint owner of husband's property. So two things that are there. First, the Hindu law has now evolved, where daughters do have the right to parents' property. And the other thing that has happened is that in Hindu law, the wife is a legal heir for the property, but not a joint owner. So this is another issue that is there. In case of Islam, the female gets one half of what the brother would get. So this is another discrimination that female faces in respect to Islam. So a divorce, so the divorce means that a husband is entitled to half of any inheritance from the wife's parents as well, in case of the Portuguese or in case of the Goa civil code. So this is something that is there. On inheritance, you can read this. On inheritance, the code is similar to Muslim law, including lineal ascents and descendants as the legal heirs. This means that parents and siblings of an individual can inherit the property, unlike Hindu law, which passes to the spouse of the or descendant. So this is a major difference there. Muslim law, all the legal heirs are all the antecedents, and the legal descendants are the legal heirs. For example, your parents are also legal heirs, whereas your descendants, your wife and your children are also legal heirs. Whereas in the Hindu law, only it can be passed out to the spouse or to the descendants. So, and the Hindu, as I told you, in 2005, the Hindu Succession Act was amended, and daughters now have the right to the ancestral property, where in case of Muslims, their own daughters are only entitled to half of the son's share. So these are very important issues that are there in Goa, which are not there in other parts of the country. So maybe you can have a read on this particular article. Then let's move on to page number 9, folks. Government WHO chief stress importance of traditional medicine. Very important article. I'm expecting a question on this year's mains and next year prelims and mains both on this particular topic. This is taken front lines these days because of the G20 summit. Now we've had this G20 ongoing summit on this WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine, and this was held in Gandhinagar last week. And in Gandhinagar, the WHO basically center said that traditional medicine, not just from India but from across the world, we need to do a lot of research on it. We need to mainstream it. We need to include it with traditional medicine. We need to mainstream it with the modern medicine as well. And then we need to do a little bit of scientific research to see that what works in traditional medicine and what does not work in traditional medicine, make it more efficacious. So this is the intention with which this particular meeting was set up. Now, if you see the third, if you see this part of the article, it says that the traditional medicine is not a thing of the past. It is growing in demand. In fact, the unmet needs of the modern medicine can be fulfilled by the traditional medicine. And even in India, in the rural areas, the prevalence of traditional medicine and that of Ayush, which we call, is much more is very much there. And traditional medicine, complementary and integrative medicine is especially important for preventing the non-communicable diseases and for mental health and for healthy aging. So, for example, something like yoga, something like your Unani, Siddha, all of them are very important for your non-communicable diseases as well as healthy aging. Now, then the WHO the WHO General Director General has given certain examples of traditional medicine which you need to know for your answers to become more enriching. For example, he talks about that how modern drugs such as aspirin has come from the bark of the willow tree, the childhood cancer drugs from the Madagascar periwinkle, the cardiovascular and hypertension drugs have come from hawthorn and foxglove, and artemisian from sweet woodworm. So wormwood. So basically, these are examples that you need to know that how the modern medicines that we see have their background, have their origins to the traditional medicine cycle. Now, and that is where you can think about Ayurveda, that how Ayurveda can improve the normal medicine as well. We all know the role that of turmeric in healing wounds and other things. So the WHO DG has talked about 3 recommendations for all the countries. We urge all countries to commit examining how to best integrate the traditional and the complementary medicines into their health systems. The second is evidence-based and actionable recommendations that can inform WHO for the next global strategy. and the third is to unlock the power of traditional medicines of science, which basically talks about that how and what is needed to research about the traditional medicine and then mainstreaming it. So this is an important article for you to understand and read. Okay. Let's move on to our editorial pages, folks. Now we already know about this entire issue of de-escalation. We've been talking about de-escalation for quite some time, and what is the talks that we have had with China, and there's nothing moving on ground right now. We've all moved a number of troops, all our artillery, and but what is hoped is that because of the G20 summit, the Xi and Modi would be meeting, and in the previous summits, whenever they were meeting, there was significant de-escalation that happened, be it 2013, be it 2017. So in earlier years before the leaders meeting, there has been some kind of de-escalation. Let's see whether the de-escalation this time works or not. And we already know about the patrolling point issue and the buffer point issue, and the areas that China has come to, the demilitarized area that China has come to occupy. Now, let's talk about more than words. Now, this is how you can start an answer. I mean, folks, this is a typical best example that you start with an anecdote. So anecdotes are very important for answer writing, and anecdotes are very important for essay writing. You start an essay with an anecdote, and you end it on the same anecdote, talking about the same thing. That shows a lot of clarity in your head and in your answers, that there is a story building that the person can do. Now, remember the stereotypes handbook of Supreme Court that has been recently released, and the forward has been signed by the Honorable Chief Justice of India. Now, this article starts with a judgment of Kerala High Court in May 2017, which talks about that a girl aged 24 is vulnerable, capable, and of being exploited, and the Kerala High Court had annulled the marriage of a woman who had converted to Islam and moved away from her family. And the Supreme Court came down heavily on the Kerala High Court that a 24-year-old girl is a major, and she knows about her decision, and she has the right to choose the kind of partner and to choose the kind of religion that she wants to have. And basically, this entire introduction is because of the fact that there is so much of stereotyping that happens, not just in judiciary, but also in our society, but more so in judiciary, because once the stereotyping forms the part of judgments, they're kind of then reflected back into the society, that this is what even the judiciary accepts, and therefore it kind of gets manifested in terms of policy, in terms of societal norms. So that is why General Transformative Project seeks to secure equal rights for all people, irrespective of their gender, and the handbook that has been released by the the handbook that has been released is basically to combat these stereotypes. So, for example, not using the words like devoted wife but wife, career woman but woman, and what is someone of loose moral character, that has always been raked up in cases of rape and sexual harassment. So these are words that will not be and should not be used, and that is what is being mentioned in that in that particular handbook. This can also be used in your society section, folks. Society section, you can use an example of this. You can also use this as an example in your essay as well, maybe in ethics, that how do we stereotype and how do we cut down on stereotyping. So very good example, and what the lower judiciary needs to follow from the higher judiciary. Missed opportunity. Missed opportunity. This article is written by the VC of National Law University, Patna. Now, this particular article talks about that how there is this change in the new. We have already talked about the three new bills. The BNS, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Bharatiya the citizens the bill that replaces the citizen the criminal code of criminal procedure, which is BKNS, and then you have the BKS, which replaces the Indian Evidence Act. Now, this particular article talks about that in our previous version, the Macaulay's version of IPC. It's the world's oldest, perhaps the oldest codified criminal law, and you also need to know the difference between these codes as well as their application. In terms of where is the application of the criminal code, and where is the application of the IPC. So IPC basically talks about, if you talk about IPC talks about that if you commit a crime, what is the punishment. This is the penal code, and it is the Dand code, or this is what the article says, which we have now talked about, the Nyaya. The difference between Dand and Nyaya are two different things. Dand is punishment, Nyaya is basically justice. So we have expanded the term. We've talked about other things in the code. For example, when we talk about the community service, and that basically talks about more towards Nyaya rather than Dand. So more than this thing, we are talking about other forms of rehabilitation for the criminals as well. Now that is one part of that is one thing which is IPC. The other thing is criminal procedure. Now the criminal procedure, as we'll see in the Menaka Guruswamy article of Saturday, which talks about the procedure and the safeguards that a person or an accused has. So the CRPC is also called as the constitution. What are the rights of an accused, and how that person who is an accused can basically fight against the might of the state to prove his or her innocence. So that is the other aspect, and the third is the Evidence Act, which is the technical aspect that we are modernizing. Now, no doubt the Macaulay's code was a product of an imperialist policy, but it was today the longest serving penal code in the common law world. Now there have been improvements. For example, there have been some changes in terms of sedition has been dropped, but we already know from 124A we moved to 150, and the definition of sedition or the word sedition that has not been used, and the words like secession or armed rebellion have been removed, and removal of disaffection towards the government has been removed. These are all welcome changes. But apart from that, what is new that has been introduced in the act or in the act and in the Samhita, which is called as the code, is subversive activities. Now, what is subversive activities? We really do not know, and it also includes financial transactions in that particular code of it. It gives major powers without explaining what these powers are going to be used for, and how do we define these terms. So the idea of IPC was the problems with IPC was that there were too many broad terms that were being used, which were not being explained. Now the same thing has now been also continued. Another problem in the code was the distinction between culpable homicide and the murder was not very clear, and still not very clear in the new code. The other thing is mob lynching. A new offense has been introduced for mob lynching, and surprisingly, for mob lynching, we have imprisonment of 7 years, whereas that of having sex with the promise of marrying has a punishment of 10 years of imprisonment. Deceitful intercourse carries a higher term than mob lynching, which is something again problematic. Then apart from that, we still have the death penalty. We are among the few countries which still has the death penalty, whereas we've been debating about the talk whether a 21st century country needs a death penalty or not. Then marital rape has still not been covered. Section 377 has been replaced, but at the same point of time, rape is still not gender neutral. The sexual violence against men has still not been covered under the new code. The new code also has not made any improvements with respect to hate speech under 153A and 153B. Offense of adultery appears in the new avatar, having sex on the false promise of promotion or marriage. So you can think of incorporation of Me Too is also now there in the IPC or the BNS. Then criminal defamation has a chilling effect on the freedom of speech and should have been decriminalized. That is still criminalized under the code, and the punishment is still retained, although a new term of community service has been added for all offenders or that involves theft of less than 5,000 or misconduct at of drunken people in public places. So new form of punishment is now there, a positive thing. But at the end of the this thing, we need to see that a good criminal justice system must be accused centric, and it because it pits one little man against the might of the entire state. So these are small improvements that we need to do in the new IPC, and something that the Standing Committee of Parliament can take care. Then we have another article which talks about the Forest Rights Act implementation in Jammu and Kashmir since 2019, and it also talks about that how throughout the country this act was implemented, and it gave rights to the forest dwelling people of minor products, and their basically their say in the land properties and the community properties had increased, but that was entirely missing in case of Jammu and Kashmir. But still, the article says, and this was all because of the fact that the Forest Rights Act was passed in 2006, which gave rights to the forest dwelling people. Then a little bit of this thing you should know, that the first survey of transhumance was conducted by the Tribal Affairs Department for evidence-based policy making. And what is transhumance? People who move from one area to another area for livelihood, and a lot of tribals do move. And in Jammu and Kashmir, we find a major chunk of people who do transhumance. For example, the section of Gujars, Bakrwals, Gaddi, Sipi, Dats, Shin, and Bot. All of them constitute 30% of the UT tribals population, and mainly they're moving from one winter to another winter. They move from one area to another area. So, and their rights have been secured throughout the country, have been secured by the Forest Rights Act, but they could not get these rights because of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir till 2019. Now, after 2019, the status has been given. We have application of Forest Rights Act, but at the same point of time, a lot of community. See, remember, the community also has the rights to. Every individual and every member needs to have its forest rights. Now, these have been consistently been rejected by at the community at the panchayati level, and this needs a lot of deliberation at the panchayat level and a lot of governance at the panchayat level to secure rights of every person in those areas of pastoral rights and land rights. So these rights right now have been rejected by the Gram Sabha and the local levels, which needs to be resolved. So a very important article with respect to this. The other article, which is written by Derek O'Brien, is with respect to the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DPDP Act, which has been passed by the Parliament. Now, a little bit of history of this particular act. That first of all, there was this A.P. Shah judgment in 2012. And there was this committee on privacy by under Justice A.P. Shah of Delhi High Court, and then you had this Puttaswamy judgment in 2017, which established the right of privacy. Then we had the 2018 Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee, and then there was this version in 2019, and then the version of 2021. And after that, a new bill has come up to light in 2022. Which has some procedural issues as well, which are mentioned in this article, that not everything was shared with the members. Then what it does is that we already talked about, that it gives a carte blanche to the central government with respect to access and block of any public information, and then it also gives the right to the government to decide that on whom it will be applicable and whom it will not be applicable. So again, the ability of the government to decide as a judge and the jury, especially because of the fact that the Data Protection Board, which is one of the vanguards, which is one of the checkpoints, is also now being controlled by the government, completely controlled by the government, and then it goes to the TDSAT, if there are any other issues with respect to this. Now, that is why this particular article is very important. This talks about other issues as well, that how the right to information has also been weakened because of the DPDP Act. Then excludability, I've already talked about that. And let's go to the explained page. On the explained page, there are only there's only one article that I think we have to take the Saturday's newspaper tomorrow. This is the only article that there was this survey that was conducted by Lokniti CSDS, which says that the biggest problem, the biggest concern that people in the age group of 15 to 34 have these days is that of unemployment. 36% of people are talking about unemployment, 16% are talking about poverty, and 13% are talking about price rise. The kind of jobs that everyone wants to take up is the health sector job of doctors and nurses and paramedicals. After that, teaching job is the most likable job. At the same point of time, still in terms of job preference, if you see the table number 4, around 61% of people in the age group want a government job, and 27% of people want their own private ownership as well. So this is the article which talks about the societal level. What are the issues? Maybe you can use this statistics, this survey in your Indian economy paper number 3 answers, or in society section paper number 2. So this is something that you can cover. If you want to read two years of Taliban rule, you can use it. But apart from that, there is nothing more important in this particular newspaper. Now, in the newspaper of Saturday, I want you to read a couple of articles. One is Moody's bullish on growth, flags sectarian tensions and curves on dissent. So you can read this particular article, but the article which I'll directly go to the meat. Page number Crying Hope is basically an article that 2 studies of RBI which suggests that yes, the growth rate is high. With the new numbers are coming by the month end, and it will show a 8% growth rate in the first quarter. But at the same point of time, there are quite a few issues with respect to our growth when it comes to our export import data, when it comes to NREGA, when it comes to weakening of automobile sales. So all of these show that there's weakening of demand as well. Then in terms of capex cycle, capital expenditure cycle, it shows that the capital 60% of the expenditures of projects financed by banks are going to sectors like power, roads, bridges, SEZ, biotech, and IT parks. Most of them are in greenfield in particular states, but we need to expand these sectors. When we need to expand the states in which this investment is going. Then Ramaswamy test is maybe a political article that you can read, that how Vivek Ramaswamy is now being taken as a serious candidate who can run up against this Senator Ron DeSantis for the position of the president nominee from the side of Republicans. So, but I would also want you to see his views on LGBTQ. He has very balanced views on LGBTQ. He looks like a refreshing personality coming from someone who's refreshing, who's modern, yet coming from the Republican side. And I think because of his charm or the way he articulates, he will find supporters both from Democrats as well as from them. An incomplete settlement, a very, very important article which we'll cover tomorrow. Mediation bill has been passed. A very, very important development for your GS answers, paper number 2. Especially, and if anyone has law as an optional, this is anyways going to be very important for you. And then the other article that we'll cover tomorrow is that of Menaka Guru Swami, that on the custody question, which talks about the fact that the bill which replaces the criminal procedure code, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, this particular bill basically talks about the criminal's defense and then the accused constitution. There are a number of good things that are there in this particular Samhita or the code, but apart from that, there are very disturbing things with respect to detention of an individual increasing from 15 days to 90 days and then 15 days to 60 days, which basically will break down an individual and make him coercive to any other anything that the police wants to the individual to say will be accepted by the individual if the term is extended. So this is going to have a chilling impact on the rights of the individual. Then on the next page you have US, Japan and South Korea to enter security pact in Pacific. And then on the explain page, one article, how do 3D printers work and where they are used. Maybe if you want, you can read where prices are hurting, but we have already done that through the economics news. Then on the economy page, at every rate revision, let the borrowers pick floating or fixed rate, and why RBI has barred lenders from levying the penal rate on default. So these are other news articles that you can read. We'll cover these 2-3 things tomorrow apart from our. So this is about it from my side, folks. I will see you tomorrow at 5 a.m. and then we'll cover the other part of the news. That okay, folks. Any questions? Luna is crashed. Okay, Luna is crashed. So let's meet tomorrow, folks, and at around 5:15, and we'll continue with this. Thank you very much, folks. See you tomorrow.